John Cookson, thanks very much indeed for joining us.
Thanks, John.
Indonesians voted today to choose a new president. Pollsters were predicting a close vote between the two front runners, but they weren't predicting that both candidates would immediately declare themselves the winner. But that's what's happened. One of the two front-runners for the top job, Jakarta Governor Joko Widodo, told a news conference shortly after polls closed this afternoon that early vote counts show that he is the winner. An hour later, his opponent, the former army general, Prabowo Subianto, told reporters that his estimates show that he has received the support and mandate from the people of Indonesia. Well, the official tally is expected to be made public on the 21st or 22nd of July. Well, Dr. Lee Jones lectures in international politics at London's Queen Mary University, and he's an expert on Southeast Asian politics, and he joins us now. Thanks very much indeed. So, the closest election in its history, what do you think the truth of it is?
Well, I think it's fairly clear that Jokowi has won. The polling agencies that have done the quick counts, which is observing people actually counting ballots inside the stations rather than exit polls, so they tend to be more accurate. The ones that are trusted and independent, they've tended to say that Jokowi has won by about 4 percentage points. It's only the agencies that are allied to Prabowo that are coming out and saying that he has won. And the margins there are between 1 and 7% in some cases, which suggests that the counts there have been manipulated.
So I was going to say, do you think that's put down to fighting talks and bravado from Subianto's camp?
Absolutely. I mean, the agencies actually carrying out these surveys tend to be, sometimes they're think tanks, sometimes they're media agencies. And what we've seen in this campaign is the media oligarchs who own the media industry in Indonesia lining up behind their favoured candidates and giving extremely biased coverage, and that hasn't changed with the election counts today.
Now, the army has said that a margin of less than 5%, and you're calling 4%, could create conflict. Do you think that's the case?
I think the army really needs to be very careful. There have been reports surfacing in the last couple of days that the army may become involved in the election, or has already been involved, including the Special Forces Unit Kopassus, which General Prabowo used to command under the previous dictatorship of General Suharto. So this is a very dangerous sign that the military could intervene potentially, or that there could be some kind of ballot stuffing or influencing of the count. So I'd really want to see the military backing off from the count if at all possible.
What potential or what evidence has there been for issues with elections in the past? Do you think that this really is a precarious situation in hearing that you said that you feel that the army should not intervene?
I don't think the army will intervene, but there is a real risk now that forces aligned to Prabowo Subianto will try to influence the vote count so that the outcome matches the polls and the surveys. Don't forget that these quick counts only happen in a sample of voting stations, and so there's a lot more counting still to be done. There is still the risk that he will attempt to steal this election. My hope is that institutions in Indonesia and the officials tasked with securing this process will be able to resist that kind of pressure.
You couldn't have a greater contrast between two candidates, could you? I mean, Jokowi came from nowhere. He wasn't connected to the army. He didn't have, he wasn't connected to anybody rich and famous. He just worked his way up. And Subianto, former son-in-law of Suharto, connections to alleged terror offences. Why do you think Indonesians would, if they were going to go for Subianto, why would they vote for what went before?
Well, that's a very complicated question with a lot of complicated answers, but basically lots of people in Indonesia, including many people in the middle classes, think that things were better under General Suharto, that things are more stable, that they had better subsidies, fuel subsidies, for example, which Jokowi wants to get rid of. And I think there's a longing for a kind of romantic golden age where everything seemed to be stable and predictable. Corruption, okay, it was centred around Suharto and it was massive, but at least it was predictable. It wasn't all over the place. It wasn't decentralised too. And I think Prabowo has tried something new. He has tried to rally people with a very populist, nationalist quite xenophobic discourse and has tried to present himself as an outsider. In fact, he's the consummate insider. He's a classic Indonesian oligarch. But he has tried to present himself as a critic of the entrenched oligarchy in Indonesia, and that seems to have gained him a significant number of votes.
One to watch. Thanks very much indeed for joining us.